like to be, which is very, very helpful. Now, I haven't done a video on this topic specifically, and I was actually surprised that nobody had. And I thought, well, that's a silly thing to do. Let's sort that out, make sure I've actually got everything covered, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So feel free to stick around. You'll find the start time for this video down in the description later on when YouTube publishes it. And usually I present everything first in my videos or live streams, and then I open it up for questions and answers near the end. And I'm going to follow the same format because it's worked well for me in the past, and I don't plan to sort of change doing something that works so well. So sit back and remember, you want to use #question if you have any questions. Okay, everything is working fine, and we are going to crack into this. I like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, I do. Let's get it done. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons 5e, and today's topic is, as it happens, critical roles or critical hits. What are they and how do they work? So for those of you who are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, do not get confused with Critical Role, the group that play or Dungeons and Dragons live on stream. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about rolling a 20-sided dice and getting a critical hit or making a critical roll, which is, the formation and the use of that word, it's usually a critical hit. So, do you call a critical hit a critical roll or a critical hit? It really doesn't matter. The result is actually exactly the same no matter what you are doing. If you roll a 20 on a 20-sided dice, that's a D20, you have just scored a critical. That's a critical hit, and it automatically hit your target. And it doesn't matter about what modifiers you apply to the attack roll. It doesn't matter what their armor class is. Modifiers do not apply, and armor class means absolutely nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain how the critical hit or critical roll works. I'm going to demonstrate it to you, and I'm going to cover sage advice, because you'd think something like this would be very, very easy, but as it happens, there are a couple of things that pop up that people have questions on. So it's a special thing to get a critical hit or critical roll. And if you want to find information, it's kind of scattered, unfortunately. So to find information on this particular roll, you want to turn to page 194 and 196 of the Player's Handbook. And I'm going to read out the section on page 196 for you, and then I will break it down and demonstrate it to you and cover the sage advice, because that's what we're here for, right? So, when you score a critical hit, that means you roll a 20-sided dice and you get a 20 on that dice, you get a roll, or get to roll extra dice for the attack's damage against the target. Roll all of the attack damage dice twice, and then add to them together. Then add any relevant modifiers as normal. To speed up your play, you can roll all the damage dice at once, which is usually the most sensible thing to do, and a lot of people do that. Now the thing to remember is, even though you're doubling the damage dice that you're using for your attack, you do not double the modifier that you apply to your damage. You're only doubling the dice. Now the example they have provided in the book is, for example, if you score a critical hit with a dagger, roll 2d4 for the damage rather than 1d4, and then add your relevant ability modifier. If the attack involves other damage dice, such as from the rogue's sneak attack or other features, you roll those dice twice as well. So that is the gist of what we have in the book. So what we want to do is we want to have a demonstration, actually see how it works in play, and I'm going to use, for this part of the video, I'm going to use the Paladin at level 3 from the Stranger Things Dungeons and Dragons starter set. I thought that was probably the best location to give you information from, just with regard to this part of the video. Okay, so here is our situation. We're in a dragon lair, and we've got a paladin over here. We've got our dragon, and you roll an attack roll. You make your attack, and you get whatever it is. But in this case, we don't roll a 7. I'm going to ditch that. What we do is you roll a 20-sided dice, and we get the 20. That's our critical hit or critical roll, which means we now need to change the way we apply damage. Now, normally this paladin, when it's rolling damage, would apply 1 8-sided dice plus their modifier, which is a +3. But it's a critical hit, so we're going to use 2 8-sided dice. I'm going to roll that and apply that to our +3 modifier. Okay, there it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to add those together, making sure that we get our calculation right. So that is a 3 for our modifier, 7 on the dice, and we also rolled a 1. Add that all up, that comes to 11. So our end result is we get, here we go, 11 damage. That's the slashing. And that's from the critical hit, because we have to double the dice. Now, what happens if we are a paladin and we get a critical hit? Can we apply smite? Well, as they were talking before about sneak attack, if you have any other extra dice that you can apply, you double those as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these dice, we're going to roll those, we're going to apply our smite. We're going to use a level 1 slot. So we take that, and we need to double those dice as well. Okay, so that's from the sword, and our smite, we double those as well. That means we've got a lot of dice in our hands. That's a huge amount, right? Very, very, very nice. So remember, that's the smite, that's the sword. We double the dice for the sword, we double the dice for the smite, and we've got a whole bunch of dice to roll. So we'll take those, give them a good old shake, and cross your fingers. Cross those fingers, man. You want high numbers, high numbers. Okay, so now we've got to add all of that up. Now, it's going to take forever, isn't it? But I will add it up. We're starting off, let's do the 4, let's put it over here. There's a 4 plus a, let's grab a 2, let's keep it even. I'll try not to knock all the dice around as much as I possibly can. 2, we'll grab an 8, because that'll make it a little bit easier for mathematics. And then we're going to add, let's grab the 7. So you can see you could do a lot of damage on a critical hit with Divine Smite. It's pretty impressive, actually. Quite scary. Honestly, this particular application of a critical hit is just crazy. Okay, so let's add that all up. We've got, it's 10, 17... 17 and 14 is 31, 32. So that's 32 damage. And that will be our critical hit with a Divine Smite. And I will leave the numbers here so you can see what we've done. There we go. Piece of cake. Okay, so that's how you apply your Divine Smite with a critical hit. What are some outstanding questions that we need to deal with? Well, there are actually a couple of questions. Sage advice is very, very helpful, and I would suggest going and checking it out sometime. So first question. Yes, you can use the sneak attack damage dice with a critical hit. It's already been discussed. We've already covered that. Divine Smite, as I've just shown you, you can apply your Divine Smite to a critical hit. Spell attacks. Yes, you can critical hit with a spell attack. If the spell involves a saving throw, no. It's got to be an attack roll, and a spell attack roll is still it's still possible to get a critical hit. Something like Adamantian Armor turns a critical hit into a regular hit for damage. That doesn't mean that Adamantian Armor will stop the critical hit from hitting at all. No. What it does, instead of taking the critical hit damage, which is where you double the dice, you don't double the dice. So that's your Adamantian Armor. What about superiority dice for our fighter? Yes, you can double those dice on a critical hit. What if I want to use something like cutting words? cutting words can't cancel a critical hit because cutting words is applying a penalty or bonus or modifier. And unfortunately, as we've already discussed, that doesn't apply. Critical hits don't work that way. Can I use something like Bane to affect critical hits? No. Bane, the spell, does not affect a critical hit because, yet again, it's a penalty or bonus or modifier being applied to the dice roll. The Barbarian's Brutal Critical, does that get affected? The Barbarian's Brutal Critical additional weapon dice don't get doubled when you have a critical hit. It's already spelled out and quite clearly in the book, so you don't get to double those. It actually specifies how you apply that feature in the book under the Barbarian features. What about the Half-Orc's Savage Attacks feature? No, the additional melee weapon damage dice, you don't double them on a critical hit. And what if I want to use the Lucky Feat? Can I counter a critical hit? Yeah, the Lucky Feat can counter a critical hit. For those of you who wanted to try and stop that critical hit that the Dungeon Master pulled out, and yes, the thing with the Lucky Feat is you can make the call to use that even if you know they have rolled a 20-sided dice and got a 20 on it. So even if you know what the actual result is, you can still apply it. This is one of the reasons why something like the Lucky Feat is incredibly powerful and often considered a bit too over OP. So if you have any questions or feedback, please leave them in the comments section or make a comment. I have many videos for Dungeon Masters and players which you are welcome to go and check out on the core rules, every aspect of the game. Whether it be a Dungeon Master or a player, I will have something for you. I have a Patreon page where you can support me so I continue to do videos like this, and if I get enough support, I'll probably wind up making this a full-time job. I also have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon where you can buy stuff online and I get a small commission, which is always good too. Now, remember, share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live, because I go live a lot, and when I edit new videos and publish them. And remember, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. I'm not gone. I am just maneuvering things as I do. And let's have a chat. So hashtag question, and I will deal with your questions as best I can and hopefully answer any things that are outstanding so that I don't have to answer them later on in the comment section, which is kind of the point of doing this live, so I don't have to deal with that sort of thing. Okay, how's it going? Okay, so I'm over on Twitch TV and I have a question. Is it okay for a player to use static damage? Okay, that's a good question. It's not so much related to a critical hit, but it's actually a really, really good question. That's really up to the Dungeon Master, okay? A Dungeon Master can make the call to use the average damage, the static damage that is placed beside a monster's stat block. You know, there's in brackets, it shows you how many dice to roll and the modifier to apply, and then there's an average damage right beside it. So for a player to use that mechanic, it would require a Dungeon Master to have buy-in. If the Dungeon Master says, no, I'm not allowing you to do that, but I will do that with my monsters, then that's really how it's going to work. I think that answers your question. And hey, thank you for asking me a question on Twitch TV. I really do appreciate it. Let us shuffle over to YouTube now and have a look at what we have in terms of questions and feedback. F-Hubba, nice. One of the most commonly misunderstood things in the game. Yes, it is, unfortunately. I would have thought it would be easy, and I was a little bit horrified that nobody had done a video specifically titled something like this. Anyway, Tasty Basey, just roll double damage, right? Well, it's double the damage dice. Whatever dice you have, you double those dice. But there are, as I said, there are a couple of features in the game where you don't double the dice. How's it going, Sector Black? Mauricio, how's it going? 20-sided die. Now, for those of you who are going to start correcting me about my wording, as in singular and plural for die and dice, I would like to point out to you that I am not from America, I am from New Zealand, which means I use Oxford English, and the modern application of the word dice applies to singular and plural now, for those of you who are unaware. You can look that up. I am not going to go into a discussion about that anymore because I get it so often it drives me a little bit batty. But if you want to check it, go Oxford, modern application of the word dice, and it does actually refer to singular and plural. And I'm not going back into the good old days. We're moving on, please. Okay, save or die. Hi everyone, how's it going, save or die? Travis, made it today. Yes, you did. It's pretty easy. I am online so much. Really, I stream so much. It's a consistent process. Mark, how's it going? Paladin with 3 levels of fighter battlemaster to add a maneuver dice. Also, don't things like Thunderous Smite let you add Divine Smite to on a hit? Yes, there are spells that will change the amount of dice that you have. So you can certainly supernova things quite nicely. Thunderous Smite would certainly help. I have done it myself with other types of paladin spells that are a smite spell. So yes, you can really sort of make things rock. Mark, what do you got here? I'd also add 2 levels of Warlock rechargeable smites. Right, okay, because on a short rest you can get your spell slots back. I get where you're going with this. It's a good idea. I'm not really, well, that's not true. I have played very, very overpowered and OP characters before. In fact, I probably should talk about them at some point. I'm sure there'll be somebody who wants to talk about it. Okay, Mike, here's your statement. Please note to viewers, Adamantian Armor negates critical hits. Not sure if you mentioned this. Yes, I did. Yes, it negates a critical hit damage. It is still going to hit the target, but it won't do the kind of damage that it used to do. Okay, it's the critical hit damage. It turns it into a regular hit. And it does actually state that in the Adamantian Armor section anyway. Okay, question from Tasty Basey. What if the rogue gets a critical hit as well as sneak attack? Do they roll extra dice twice? Well, here's the thing. I just talked about that. Yes, you do. If you're applying sneak attack to your attack and you've got a critical hit, yes, you double the sneak attack damage dice. I just said that. I'm pretty sure I did. So yes, absolutely. Scott, how's it going? Also mentionable is the Grave Cleric ability to cancel critical hits. Now, I did not look up the Grave Cleric ability to cancel critical hits. But if it does, then great. I would have to actually check that myself. There are so many rules to deal with nowadays that I can only cover so much. Okay, so that has covered everything on YouTube, and I'm just going to check over on Twitch TV. We seem to be all good over there. Look, I am going to say goodbye and get on with prepping for my next video. Now, for those of you who like to know what's coming next, I will be streaming at about 1 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time today. I will be covering The Curse of Strahd. Now, what will I be talking about? Fortune of Ravenloft. That's right. The Taroka card reading. The Taroka card reading. That's exactly what I'm covering. I'm going to do it on screen. I'm going to do it on here so you can see how it's done. So for those of you who wanted to sort of have a discussion around that, it's coming. And it will be in about an hour and a half if I get my act together and get going and sort it out. I'm almost pretty much prepped, so that's good news. I just need to do a couple of more things and we're ready to go. So I'm going to do my sign out for those of you who are familiar with that. I understand if it's time to leave for you. So have a good night, good day, good morning, good afternoon. Look after yourself and your family. Don't do anything foolish. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.